241,200 years. That number was not invented. It was recorded, pressed into clay, fired in a kiln.
The record is complete! Fire the kiln, bury it deep!
Buried beneath the soil of ancient Mesopotamia for 4,000 years, waiting. And when archaeologists finally pulled it from the ground in what is now southern Iraq, what they found inside its text stopped serious scholars cold. A king list, 8 rulers, 8 reigns, each one stretching across spans of time so enormous that modern academia made a decision. Call it mythology and move on. But here is the part they move on from very quickly. The numbers are not random, they are divisible, they are structured, they are written in base 60 mathematics. The same numerical architecture that governs every clock on Earth right now. Every GPS satellite, every degree of every circle ever calculated. The Sumerians did not develop base 60 on their own. I want you to hear this clearly. They said it was given to them by beings who descended from the heavens. The 241,200-year rule, decoding the Sumerian King List's ancient mystery. To understand what the Sumerian King List is really telling us, you have to read it the way its authors intended, not as legend. As a ledger, the Weld Blundell prism, purchased in 1922, dated to approximately 2000 BCE during the 3rd dynasty of Ur. But scholars are careful to note, it is almost certainly a copy of a much older source text. How old? No one agrees. What everyone agrees on is what it says. The text opens like this. When the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. From heaven. That is the literal translation. Not from a palace, not from a bloodline. From heaven. And then it begins listing names. Alulim of Eridu reigned 28,800 years. Alalngar of Eridu reigned 36,000 years. Enmen-Luana of Bad Tabira, 43,200 years. Enmen-Gal-Ana of Bad Tabira, 28,800 years. Dumazid the shepherd also of Bad Tabira, 36,000 years. Ensapad-Zid Ana of Larak, 28,800 years. Enmen-Durana of Sipar, 21,000 years. Ubara Tutu of Shurapak, 18,600 years. 8 kings, total combined reign, 241,200 years. Now, before we go any further, I want you to do something. Look at those individual numbers. 28,800, 36,000, 43,200, 21,000, 18,600. Every single one is a multiple of 600. 28,800 divided by 600 equals 48. 36,000 divided by 600 equals 60. 43,200 divided by 600 equals 72. These are not the numbers of a culture making things up. These are the numbers of a culture recording something in a specific numerical framework. A framework built around 60 and 600 and their multiples. Which brings us to the question that mainstream scholarship has never satisfactorily answered. Then the flood came. That is the exact language the text uses. A clean break, a hard stop, a line in the clay that divides all of human history into 2 completely different worlds. Before the flood, 8 kings, 241,200 years, reigns measured in thousands. After the flood, the first post-flood king, Jushur of Kish, 1,200 years. Then 960, then 900, then 840, then 720, and within just a few generations of the flood event, the numbers collapse entirely. Rulers reigning for 300 years, then 200, then 140, then lifespans that are human. Think carefully about what you are looking at. This is not a gradual decline, not a slow erosion over millennia. This is a cliff, a vertical drop in recorded lifespan, occurring at a single specific named event, the Great Flood. That event is recorded independently in at least 200 separate flood myths from cultures across the world: Mesopotamia, India, China, the Americas, Sub-Saharan Africa. No global catastrophe in mythology has more independent corroboration. But the Sumerian version contains something the others largely don't. It contains the math. Here is where we have to be honest about what we know and what we don't. The Sumerian texts, not just the King List, but the Enuma Elish, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Atrahasis, speak of beings called the Anunnaki. The literal Sumerian translation, those who from heaven came to earth, not gods in the mythological sense, administrators, engineers, geneticists. The texts describe them arriving in vessels, building cities, instructing the first humans in agriculture, law, astronomy, and mathematics. Now, I am not asking you to believe that. I am asking you to hold it as a working hypothesis, because when you do, suddenly the 241,200-year rule starts behaving less like poetry and more like a personnel record. Let's connect the math to the science. The Earth wobbles on its axis, slowly. Over a period of approximately 25,920 years, our planet completes one full precessional cycle, what ancient astronomers called the Great Year or the Platonic Year. Now watch this. 43,200, the longest reign on the King List, divided by the precessional cycle of 25,920. 43,200 divided by 25,920 equals 1.666, which is 5/3. A harmonic ratio, not random noise, and 25,920 itself, divisible by 60, by 72, by 360, by 432. Every significant number in Sumerian cosmology is harmonically linked to the motion of the Earth through space. Archaeoastronomer Giorgio de Santillana, a professor at MIT, not a fringe researcher, spent years documenting what he called the Hamlet's Mill hypothesis. His argument, published in 1969, was this: ancient civilizations across the world encoded precessional knowledge into their myths using very specific numbers. 43,200, 72, 36, 2,160, all of them divisible by 360, all of them embedded in ancient sacred texts, including, and specifically, the Sumerian King List. But there is another interpretation, one that sits closer to the text itself. Because the Anunnaki aren't described as astronomers in the Sumerian records, they're described as biologists. The Atrahasis epic, one of the oldest texts on Earth, describes the creation of the first human in explicit biological terms, the mixing of clay, red, earthly genetic material, with the blood of a slain god. Ea, the Sumerian Lord of Wisdom, acts as a kind of chief architect of the process. Now consider what that implies. If the pre-flood rulers were not fully human, if they were Anunnaki or Anunnaki-human hybrids, then their multi-thousand-year lifespans were not myth, they were biology. There are species on Earth today that outlive humans by extraordinary margins. The Greenland shark lives approximately 400 years. The ocean quahog clam, 500 years. Certain deep-water coral colonies, 4,000 years. Lifespan is not a fixed cosmic law. It is a genetic parameter, which raises a question that modern biology genuinely cannot yet answer. Why did human longevity collapse so dramatically, so suddenly at a specific moment in prehistory? Because it did. Genetic studies published in the early 21st century, including research out of Stanford and later Harvard's genetics program, have confirmed that the human population passed through an extreme genetic bottleneck somewhere between 70,000 and 100,000 years ago. Our species was nearly wiped out. Some estimates suggest the total breeding human population fell below 10,000 individuals. A near-extinction event. The Sumerian texts call that event the Flood, and they say, very specifically, that it was predicted by the Anunnaki. That one human called Ziusudra in the Sumerian version, Utnapishtim in Gilgamesh, Noah in Genesis, was warned, told to preserve genetic material. And after that event, the text records something that no mainstream scholar has ever coherently explained in purely mythological terms. The rulers of Earth begin dying like the rest of us. So here is where we land, not at an answer, at a sharper question. The Sumerian King List is not a random document. It is a mathematically structured record.
Observe! The ancient record is awakening!
Quickly, measure the sacred sequences.
Written in a numerical system of extraordinary sophistication, describing a period of history that predates every civilization we formally recognize, and then recording the precise moment when the world as we know it began.
Secure the gates! Drop the levers now!
And the dividing line, the Flood event, does not just separate two eras of mythology. It separates two completely different types of human existence. One in which something ancient, long-lived, and enormously capable walked openly among us. And one in which whatever that was gone. The Anunnaki texts don't describe gods who vanished into metaphor. They describe administrators who departed, withdrew.
The cycle concludes, the numbers on stone. Maintain the measure.
Left behind fragmentary instructions encoded in stone and number in the architecture of our earliest cities: Eridu, Uruk, Nippur, Sippar. Cities that the King List names explicitly. Cities that archaeology has confirmed actually existed. Real cities, real clay tablets, real numbers. 241,200 years. Here's what I want you to sit with tonight. The post-flood kings still lived for hundreds of years. The collapse was dramatic, but it was gradual, as if something was fading, diluting. Generation by generation, whatever quality produced those impossible lifespans was bleeding out of the human lineage, which means one of two things. Either the ancient Sumerians were extraordinarily sophisticated mythological poets, encoding precessional astronomy, base 60 mathematics, and a precise genetic timeline into their earliest written records as pure fiction. Or something walked this earth before us, something long-lived, capable, and deliberate, something that may have had a hand in what we are, something that left or was removed at the moment of the flood.
The waters approach. Our architecture will endure.
And what we call civilization is what they left behind. The clay is still here. The numbers are still there. 241,200 years, and we still don't know what they mean. Here is your question for the comments today, and I want to read every single one of these. If the pre-flood lifespans in the King List represent real biological data, whether from long-lived Anunnaki rulers, human hybrid bloodlines, or a different genetic baseline entirely, what do you believe caused the collapse? Was it the flood itself? An environmental catastrophe that permanently altered human biology? Was it a deliberate genetic modification? A second intervention that shortened our lives? Or was it something else entirely? Drop your theory below. The most compelling argument gets pinned. And if this is your first time here, There are hours of this waiting for you. Every thread pulls deeper. We are just getting started.